excited to have Bobby Sudharshan with us. Bobby is coming today from Kochi in India, where he is a digital transformation leader with a designer mindset. He finds his flow integrating the needs of people with possibilities of technology to deliver successful business outcomes. Bobby has 2 decades of experience working across multiple roles as an IT architect and head of delivery and operations. Prior to his work at DIGO, he held technology roles at Microsoft and General Electric. Bobby, what a pleasure to have you with us. It's late right now in India, and you're here with our global audience. We're so privileged and grateful to have you share your expertise with us.
Thank you, Jose. Thanks for having me here. So today, I know I'm standing between you and lunch for many. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the viewers. Thank you for taking time and joining us. I'm a practicing enterprise architect. I'm also learning. I wouldn't call myself an expert at any. My objective here is to share with you whatever I have gained knowledge and experience about. So today we will be talking about enterprise integration strategy for an enterprise when they are in multi-cloud environment. Today, many organizations are in multi-cloud environment for various reasons. We'll get to that. So my presentation is actually for today is split into 3 areas. I would largely call it as the why we are in multi-cloud and why do we have to relook at integration strategy for enterprise. Then the what is integration components, what are the components which you need to look at, and how do we arrive upon an integration strategy. So I've tried to split this into 3 areas. So having said that, let me just quickly take you through the agenda. The first portion will cover about the multi-cloud and the integration overview. The challenges multi-cloud poses for integration of application and data and even infrastructure. We look at the benefits if you have the right integration strategy in place. What's the benefit and positive impact it makes to the organization? That's something which we will look at. Then we will look at the components of data, application, and infrastructure integration components. What are the different areas, and what are the other the surrounding components which you need to look at in terms of security and the governance? We'll just briefly cover those areas. Then we look at the framework to actually arrive upon an integration strategy, and we'll summarize. So next 30 minutes or so, I would be taking you through that. Firstly, the why. The why do we have multi-cloud? I mean, if you look at enterprises about 10 years or 15 years back, and I recall many of my conversations with CIOs, they were reluctant to actually adopt cloud. There were instances where they said they're quite happy with their on-premise. The processes are well defined, the efficiencies are good, and why look at cloud? Cloud doesn't really give me anything much more than what I can build and deliver. From that point to today, and maybe the pandemic might have fueled it or accelerated it, cloud has become a norm in most organizations. And to the point where we are now looking at not just one cloud in an organization, we are looking at multiple clouds. I mean, I may just take a few names of clouds, but just don't misunderstand. I'm not evaluating any cloud, or I'm not proposing one cloud against the other. It's just to compare, and it makes it easy for me to compare. I might just take a few names of clouds, like you know most of them, the top 10s. Azure, AWS, Google is really coming up, and there is Alibaba Cloud. So there are various. VMware has their own cloud, Rackspace Cloud. So I might just take these names, but if you look at most enterprises are adopting multiple cloud and also the SaaS. So why do they adopt these multiple cloud? What's the primary reasons? One of them I see is that they look at with a philosophy of a right cloud for the right reasons, right workload. For instance, data and analytics, you might look at one particular cloud. For running your business applications, you might look at another cloud. For a HRMS systems, you might even look at a SaaS, which is hosted, and provided as a complete service to you from a cloud standpoint. Enterprise also looks at multiple cloud for data sovereignty reasons. Many countries are quite strict about data being confined within their geographic boundaries. So you look at a cloud options, you might be in one cloud, but then you want to expand into an area, the business is expanding to a region where they mandate data to be there, and then you are forced to look at a cloud which actually provides that kind of coverage across the globe. And most of them are actually seriously ramping up their data center presence across the globe. There is, every month or every 2 months, I see Google or Azure, and everybody is actually building data centers across, and it's actually growing. And as I said earlier, the situation we are all in, unfortunate as it may be as the pandemic, the consumption of cloud and the cloud services has really gone through the roof, for the enterprises. So that's one of the reasons where the growth is also going really high. Then another reason is the marketplace in cloud. They're really maturing. When I say marketplace, traditionally, if you look at firewall vendors, they've grown on-premise, right? When we set up something on-premise data centers, we need to secure it. So we build a secure wall, which is a DMZs. We defense in depth strategy. So we build security in multiple defense depth. All these solutions have now matured and available in cloud as software appliances. So there is nothing stops enterprises now setting up a cloud environment which is fully secure, the way they used to run it in cloud. And to that point, I would say even better, because cloud brings innovation first into it. So innovation is first hits cloud and then probably hit an on-premise technology. Then another reason I see is that application services, or cloud native services, they're maturing so fast. It's that a lot of them provide services which you probably cannot build on-premise. Cognitive services, AI, ML, the level of the maturity or the features which is coming into, and the innovation which is coming into these areas, it's becoming difficult for enterprises to actually keep up with that, right? So these are the reasons. Then probably de-risking lock-in. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You just want to see if you want to move your data or an application from one cloud to the other. Enterprises like to have that flexibility to move things around a little bit, although it's not as easy said than done. But that's something which look at. And disaster recovery. So you may have your application in one cloud, probably your disaster recovery in another cloud, which makes sense. So that this is just something which we see. I thought it would also be interesting to see what our analysts are saying. But if you look at Gartner's survey, 81% of respondents have said that they're working with 2 or more providers. 75% of mid-size and large organizations they will adopt multi-cloud by 2021, and we are already there. Right. If you look at one of the 10 biggest public cloud provider, they would actually take the 50% of the market share by 2023. And I would think much more than 50. And my guess would be something 75. They're all consolidating and really competing and coming out with new services every other month. Same goes like data management. If you take a survey of that, they said today they have the data in multiple clouds. So this sets an interesting segue into our conversation, which is integration. Integration is nothing but bringing together, right? It's about bringing your data together, bringing your application together. So when you are multi-cloud, it poses its own challenges to you. Multi-cloud challenges are, as it's clear, when you had one cloud, you had challenges of managing and integrating data. Now you have multiple cloud, so obviously it's multifold. the challenges also increases. Your data is spread across, so there's a challenge of data governance, data management. There are solutions in the market which addresses all this, but before we get into that, your applications are more and more distant and siloed. There's a challenge of those communicating with each other. You want to keep all this automated for bringing in efficiency. That's again a challenge. When you want to run an automation across different cloud providers, having different formats and instances, right? So that's one. Another challenge is the standards. Let's look at, if you look at a DevOps in one cloud, the DevOps in one cloud, the entire process of DevOps has multiple things, SAST and the repository, and every cloud has its own native repositories and standards. So when you want to develop an application for an organization, when you're in multiple cloud, how do you manage this? That's again a big challenge, integrating all this DevOps. As I said, data governance again. But then if you get your strategy right, then you can actually reap all the benefits of cloud. You get agility for bringing data together for business to make the right insights. You get, thereby, you can reduce manual efforts. You can save time and cost there. The visibility of moving the data between clouds is very clear if you get the integration strategy and the monitoring and all of them right. So these are all actually, leads to an accelerated growth. Your business can be a lot more quicker and nimbler. So this is what the benefit it provides and the positive impact it actually makes to the enterprises in many business functions, which we may not really realize. But look at sales, having the customer information from CRM integrated and readily available, with bringing all the data together, actually gives the sales the right insight about the customer, what they are buying, what's the cross-selling opportunity, what's the upselling opportunity. All this actually becomes a lot clearer for sales. Similarly, for production planning, finance, everybody gets to benefit out of these, right? So this is something which I thought I will set as the reason why we need to look at integration strategy. Now, going into the integration strategy, let's understand what are the 3 pillars of integration. I would say there are a lot more. I mean, if you look at processes and many, but I've focused here in today's 30-minute session is about data, application, and infrastructure, which I would call it as a technology foundation. The data, as you know, there is a lot of data which now comes from things which is IoT. That's actually gaining a lot of ground in enterprises, especially manufacturing and various other industries. Then there is consumer data. Then there is a business-to-business data. All this is one part of it. Then there is applications. We have now applications are across SaaS, which is software as a service, which is a finished service like a Workday today. ServiceNow, Salesforce. These are all SaaS applications. Then you have PaaS applications, platform as a service. You would have built, you would have just written the code and leveraged PaaS services from cloud service providers. Then, of course, there is a legacy, what we've had all these years, which is probably within our own data centers. Then if you look at the foundation, technology, infrastructure, which we need to integrate, we have to integrate the network. Now every cloud has its own network design, network layout. Now, as an enterprise, for me to keep the secure and monitor that, I have to integrate all of them. And from a central point, I need to manage and monitor. The DevOps is something which I just spoke about earlier. Identity, which is very critical. Every user, the personas of your organizations, your customers, your employees, your partners, your trading partners, your distribution, supply. I'm more from the manufacturing side I'm talking about, but if you relate this to your own industries, identity of all these personas, identity required for applications today, all this needs to be integrated tightly, and your strategy needs to actually look into all these areas. That's what I'm just trying to stress upon here, and ensure that they are designed with security as prime most. area, right? And also look at where they are originating. Your data is now coming from on-prem, cloud, mobile, IoT, there's edge devices. So data and applications are now so far and spread. This brings the area about governance, which needs to envelop these entire pillars and all these components. You have to ensure that they are managed, monitored, they're available for audit trails. So this is, I would say, the house of integration, if I were to call it. Every key pillars of the data, application, and the technology foundation. From here, let me quickly move to what is a data integration. So when we look at data integration, if I were to read the actual definition, it's about combining data from multiple sources to create a unified view for your organization so that they can derive insights out of it, right? So today, before the organizations have a data integrations, I do believe that organizations should also have a data strategy, which is centers around your data strategy for an organization could be, and one of the areas it might center around is your consumer experience. How do you improve that? That could be using data. I'm talking about using your data you've gathered across over a period of many years. How do you improve your customer or consumer experience? How do you improve your products and services? By feedback from social feeds and things like that, right? So that's the data coming from there. Sorry. How do you improve your operational excellence? Operational efficiency, how do you achieve that using data? And more importantly, if you're in the right business, how do you monetize your data, which is within all the legal limits, and covering all the GDPR and all the compliance and all those areas in place. So this is the strategy you need to understand. The organization or the enterprise needs to have that in place in order for prior to data integration. I would build, because that would actually help you understand what areas you need to prioritize. Do you look at customer and consumer data first in integrating, or you look at an IoT, right? So if you look at from the left to right, the data sources are many. Today, the data comes from your existing databases. It comes in files, which we keep sending back and forth across email. There's IoTs. This is API sources, because many applications are API. They expose their services through API, right? So these are different sources. And now the data integration is actually goes across in multiple stages. You ingest that data onto a staging area. Probably the ingesting process could be many. If an IoT, it could stream the data because it's real time. It might send data, right? Or it could have a batch process. You could have a micro batch processes. Okay, so you have CDC, right? So change data, which is moving in from one place to the other. So this all can be prepared first. You need to stage it, the raw data, probably in an object store or IoT hub like areas, and then you prepare the data. Once you clean this data, then you transform these data to the target store. So the transformation piece, this is in many words, they say, the ETL process, the transformation and load. So you probably load this to a data warehouse for the traditional analytics, the BI, or you probably load it to the data lake based on whether you need a conformed data or you want a data that can be further used by data science, like an AI and ML sort of workloads. So this is finally, and the data consumers on the other end. So between the data source and consumers, this is the actual sort of a very high level steps it goes through before the data reaches and becomes meaningful. Similarly, let me just look at application integration. Application integration is a process of bringing together or enabling independently designed applications to work together. So there is a workflow that needs to happen from, let's say, an HRMS system like a Workday to a ServiceNow. So how do you keep these applications talking to each other, communicating to each other? So that's the application integration. So if you look at traditionally, all this, what you see here, there are various applications, e-commerce, legacy systems, your business intelligence system, financial systems, mostly probably in the ERPs of the world. They all talk to each other, and whereas your third parties, which is distributors, all of them, those applications all talk to each other, exchanging data, and that was used either probably a middleware, there is based on the protocol and whatever, that's what you had in place. But today, the enterprise expectation is that the integration of application should be from anything. It could be any application or anything. When I say IoT devices, anytime and anywhere. So having said that, let's just look at some of the integration patterns on a very high level from an application standpoint. Traditionally, on premises, when you have everything what we had in, within your four walls, you had an app talking to SAP. As again, I've just taken SAP as a representational. It's not that that's the only app it can talk to. So an app A to app B, let's say in this case, app B is SAP, used to have a middleware. But if you look at as we came up, up the curve and then said we start adopting cloud, then there is a requirement for cloud applications to talk to on-premise, and the on-premise need to talk to cloud. Let's say a Workday as an application which is hosted in cloud, is a SaaS applications, might need to talk to SAP. So there are multiple ways to do this today, but there's a trend that it's all moving to this is more of a marketing word maybe, but again, it's a very effective iPaaS, integration platform as a service. So many solutions out there, which is really maturing fast in providing what the earlier middlewares used to be, and beyond that, and providing that as a service and making it available either as a SaaS or you can actually deploy within your own environment. So this actually helps enterprises now leverage these platforms to actually help applications to talk to each other. So that's a cloud to on-prem to cloud. There's a cloud to cloud, let's say Workday to ServiceNow. Let's just take an example of employee onboarding and offboarding, right? When you have an employee coming into your company, when you're joining them, you want to do a pre-boarding experience for them, because you don't want him to show up on a Monday morning and not having any user login details, no laptops, no access to any applications, no other. So companies are actually looking to improve those experience for employees. So they do a pre-boarding experience, pre-boarding preparations actually, before the employee actually walks into an office. So that's actually happens between many systems at the back end, right? So if you look at a Workday, is where the employee details get loaded first after the hiring is done. Even the pre-hiring actually happens over Workday in many cases, right? So then what happens once it's hired, we want to ensure that all the applications and systems that users needed is made ready to access as soon as the user or the employee comes into the office, or in today's world, the laptops or the devices get shipped to their homes, right? So that integration is actually, again, done using iPaaS platforms. It can be done using traditional methods, but today now, as I said, there's a growing trend in using iPaaS kind of services to actually integrate applications. Same goes with IoT. Many cloud providers have their own streaming services, which is straight away goes into that, or in some cases from the edge gateway, it takes it through the iPaaS system and into the cloud. So the options are there. It's just about finding the right integration patterns for enterprises actually to look at different use cases. So one area where it's gaining, even I think even Gartner has called this out, saying hybrid integration platform. So you may continue to have your own legacy. You may build a an on-premise platform, and you may leverage a hosted platform. A hosted platform also could be partially, the control plane could be hosted by the vendor and manage, whereas your data plane is something which you manage within your environment. So this is all a couple of integration patterns which I thought I would. Same goes with the now let's move quickly into infrastructure as integration. Here you look at identity. You have to ensure that it's federated with different vendors, so that in one cloud, one identity can be used across multiple cloud. So you don't need to have one cloud, one ID, and that's going to be a security nightmare. So you look at network integration. If you look at across when you bring in network integration, you must be familiar with the concept like software-defined network. So this software, the virtualization of the network functions, which is a VNF I've written there, this actually helps you bridge that gap between the traditional network to the modern cloud-based network. So it is a lot easier for you to actually integrate those different clouds today as compared to earlier, because most network functions are virtualized, and it's easy to actually connect between clouds. There are cross connects provided between clouds, which gives you a private connectivity between clouds. So your data is never on the internet. It's actually in a trusted, secure path between clouds. So and fast across the globe. So those features are available. So that's where it comes on the network areas. And compute, you expect the VMs to actually move across different clouds. As I said, vendor lock-in. No customer wants vendor lock-ins anymore. They're expecting containers to really pick up. Containers is a way of deploying applications, in a very efficient way. More and more applications, when they leverage microservices, they're going to be containerized, and we're going to see a lot more movement of those between cloud service providers. So this actually sort of brings us into saying, I spoke about what, the what, the why, but now it's most important is the how, right? So here is where I'm going to just talk through you about, from an enterprise architect standpoint, how do you get there, right? So the way I think these are all the tools and processes in a framework, which I think is very important for us to actually define an integration strategy. First is defining the principles of integration. It can be aligned with the EA principles. That's very key area. So you're clear when it comes to decision making. Then you can build a capability model, probably a technology capability model against the business in different level L0 to L4, which will actually tell you what kind of capability would you need, okay, and what's the business capability which you would need to start mapping out. It's a decomposed capability, stages actually. So if you take one high level, let's say data as a high level, data integration might be one, data management might be one, data governance might be L1s. Then within data integrations, you have various capabilities which you build. So you sort of lay out this, and you understand that what is the capability currently business have, and what is that they're expecting to have. And reference model is sort of a quick superimposing a technology onto a capability model, and I'll just go through that. Then the time model. The time model actually gives you the Gartner time model probably gives you about what to tolerate, where you want to invest, where you want to migrate, or where you want to eliminate. I'll just look at that. Then we just covered quickly about a couple of integration patterns, the way that would help adoption of these technologies, and the roadmap. Finally, once you define all these technologies, you may also want to define a technology selection framework. So having said, maybe just conscious of the time, let me quickly take you through the integration principles. Maybe you want to look at an integration technology areas, which is probably buy versus build. You may want to go for a SaaS versus an IaaS, which you build it yourself. Look at an API first design principles for applications. In a technology selection process, you may want to have reusability of components. Then you don't want the technology to be dependent on the underlying platform. That's the platform independence. You want to have the data, and the data is ensure that it's considered as an asset today, and it should be shared and accessible to all applications and wherever it's required. And all of them, this needs to be scalable, reliable. So these are the high level. It's not limited to this. Depends on the organizations and priorities. These principles could differ. This is just a sort of a high level guidelines. Then this is about a capability model I just spoke about. So you have different capabilities. If you look at a data and application, data integration might be an L1 capability. Under data integration, you may have ingestion as actually a sub capability. So you decompose all this and you arrive upon an L3 process. So each of them could be a function or a feature of certain applications, certain technology which you're going to bring into the enterprise. So you can understand what technology provides most of this as part of your evaluation process. This is a time model of Gartner. This is actually helps you to understand in your organization, where does the technology, the application landscape lies. So if an application is actually scores reasonably well in terms of, say, it provides business value, but probably it might be sunsetting soon. That's one thing which you think you will have to tolerate for a little more while. You may not invest anything in it, but you just have to live with it for some more time, because it's actually giving enough business value, but it's actually may not be fully supportable. But at the same time, most of the the new innovation, new application, that's where you may want to look at where it gives high business value. So if you look at the x-axis and y-axis, the business value score is high and the architecture score is high. That means normally they will be in the invest quadrant, which will say this is where most investment of would go in. You may also want to look at migrate, where it provides good enough business value, but maybe system is due for a upgrade, and so that's one of the migrate. And things are which is low in both are the ones to be eliminated. Why this is important is when you look at the integration strategy, you're going to finally integrate applications and data, right? So this data resides in all these applications and stores. So you may want to focus more on the I and the M, the right hand side, than the left hand side. And maybe finally, I might just I'm not sure of the time, but I might just talk about how do you help your application owners, or the business actually owners, and the domain architects, or whoever who's in your organization takes decision around these. How do you help them pick the right integration tools and technologies? So you may have a business requirements. You may want to define an assurance level based on business, application, and network, and you arrive upon these integration patterns based on that. So let's say in the business level, assurance level may be that if I were to pick an invoice, I want that invoice to stay in the system for probably 8 hours as you move the invoice from application A to application B. So this is where the assurance level definition matters. So when you sort of put these two across, you'll get different use cases you can build for your organization, and that's what actually helps business to adopt the right technology. So this is more of an post defining the standards of integration, probably either an iPaaS or you bring in whatever the technology which is coming into the enterprise of across the stack of most cloud, which works across the stack. Then you probably between that, which what's the right area to choose what. So that's what this would cover. And I think, having said, probably that's my last slide. And this is sort of a summary of what I've just talking about, the whole framework. Capability models, build your reference models, your roadmaps. Something which I didn't put a slide specifically for it, but it goes without saying that you got to have a technology roadmap for it, and making your patterns and blueprints for the enterprise. So that's said, that's my closing slide. I hope this was worth the time, and I might be on time, I hope.
Fantastic presentation, Bobby. I'm going to ask you to stop showing your screen, and I'm going to come back on momentarily. I'm scanning for some of the questions here right now that the audience has provided. And the first one that I'm going to ask you, start with, is that, what a fantastic journey that you have shared with us here when it comes to the strategy, but also the tactics and the processes that you're using to implement a cloud strategy. The question is, if you could distill it down for someone who is kind of in the beginning of this journey, someone who has maybe more of an ad hoc basis done enterprise architecture and really explore the cloud environments, specifically multi-cloud environments. What are some of the for someone who's beginning on this journey? I think that I forgot to turn my camera on. For someone who is on the beginning of this journey, and they look back, and a lot of people were going to the cloud for potential cost reasons, and then it kind of evolved because there was potential of applications that were better run on the cloud. And based on where things are today, two-part question. First one is that, what are the good reasons to go to a cloud environment or a multi-cloud environment today? And how do you start the journey on the right foot?
Yeah. So first question, if I heard it, there was a little bit of static on my side. The first question, if I heard, what are the good reasons to go to multi-cloud? The good reasons are, cloud gives you a lot of opportunities in terms of the cloud native services which is coming around are not readily available even if you were to build on premise, like cognitive services, AI, ML, various workloads in cloud, which enterprises are looking at cloud for those workloads. It's actually a quick win, and the time to insight and all of them which business really needs today, because business is data driven, and the amount of challenges, the competition, it's a very competitive market out there, right? And data is an asset. So how do you analyze data and give you the time to insight shorter, right? That's one of the reasons why enterprises are actually adopting cloud and multi-cloud for that matter, right? You may have for some reason, for some areas, your applications, you may want to host it in one cloud, but for leveraging and data and analytics capability of a different cloud. So that's one reason. The second question, if I heard you correctly, how do you keep it all this managed? So one of the areas is, I think, very important in cloud is a cost management. The more you go to multiple cloud, it's better to have a centralized governance scheme. So probably many organizations are starting to feel, although cloud provides you with all these great features and functionalities and services which you can quickly adopt and deliver to the business, but at the same time the cost is high, right? How do you keep it under check? Because it's just like turning a tap on, right? And if you don't turn it off at the right time, you're just going to waste resources. So how do you ensure there's optimal usage of resources, the costing? So governance is a very important factor. Having the right strategy in terms of drawing out what standards in each technology, which technology to be used in which cloud needs to be defined. Otherwise, if you don't define these clearly, business has the wherewithal actually to go and spin up something when they want to, because cloud makes that easy for business to do that. They might just go to a cloud and do their own analytics. I hope I answered it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you captured the essence of it. The second portion of the question was a little bit on how to get started on the right foot. What are the best things to, if I'm new, especially in a multi-cloud environment, what are the benefits that are driving me really to go to a multi-cloud cloud environment? Is it really cost? Because it sounds more costly if I have more clouds, but maybe it's not. Is it functionality? Is it security? It's probably a combination of a number of things depending on what you're doing. But
Yes.
in
Yeah.
your experience, what do you think has been the biggest driver for the multi-cloud environment? And then for people who are getting started, I think you already partially answered this. How do you get started on the right foot, with the right best practices right off the bat?
Yeah. So many organizations I've seen, they come into multi-cloud organically. They'll start somewhere, then they realize, okay, that's a service which are not really great here, so I need to look at elsewhere. So they start to bring in multiple cloud without even really realizing that they are actually in multi-cloud, because in some of them by acquisition you bring in multi-cloud, and companies are acquiring more and more. So you don't have a choice, because the company you're acquiring in a cloud A and you're in cloud B, and then you're there with two clouds, and now you got to deal with it. So how do you do that? In my way, as I said, I think most important is, which I've experienced, is you have to have the right governance across this. That's the most important thing. And many tools, almost every cloud vendor is focused on providing that. But again, each cloud vendor provides their own governance tool. So I would say you got to have a centralized governance team and tools and processes in place, and standards, to have that. I'm not sure if I was repeating my stuff, but I'm sorry.
You're basically, you bring a very good perspective, which is the fact that maybe it was not multi-cloud by design, it was multi-cloud by acquisition, which is something that maybe we hadn't thought about. So let me ask you this question: is multi-cloud by design still the right option to be had? Or really, if you can consolidate around one cloud system, if you have that luxury, if you're not making acquisitions, if you're not inheriting these new children, should you go with a single cloud approach, or a multi-cloud approach is still superior for a number of reasons?
I feel multi-cloud is still superior, because each cloud provider has their own strengths. While they have a bouquet of services which is common, there is something which has a value added service, or a key area which they really innovate in. So there is never that you will have everything in one cloud. And as the enterprises mature more and more in terms of their requirements, then it becomes more and more important to have multi-cloud. But if it's a smaller organizations just coming, you may need whatever you may need might be there in one cloud. But if your enterprise maturity level, in terms of the data maturity level, the analytics and the data analytics maturity level within the organization, I'm just going back to analytics because that's a very very close example, or something which you can relate to. That actually forces you to look at the best in available out there. So you may not have the best in the cloud you are in today, right? So for that workload, we might have to look at something else. So I feel the way it's going, each cloud service provider is building their own niche areas, and these are all combining together, and they are talking to each other really well. It's not each cloud vendors are going silos. I think there is a lot of synergy in terms of connectivity between them. All that is actually getting established, so it's getting seamless. Yet at the same time, you're able to pick and choose what you want to access different places. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, Bobby. We have about 30 seconds here, so I want to wrap up with something that you're excited about. You know, when you look at cloud technologies, when you look at applications, you know, if you look at the last 12 months or maybe in the near future, is there anything on the technology or application side of the clouds that you are like excited about? It's maybe something that most people are not aware of, and you think it's exciting that you have those capabilities today?
I think I think it's data science. Everybody, the data is the key. Every organization is actually grappling with getting the right insight, although it's been there for many years. I think that's the field, that's the area which the cloud is bringing in. That, that's the investment and the research and development and innovation that's going in. Cloud is what excites me the most. I mean, my focus is there, not in the infrastructure or the application side of it. I think data is king. Data is the new oil, as they say, right? And it's actually those capabilities in cloud, I think most of you might be aware of, but I feel that they are the ones. And 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 other areas might come in. I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. But data is, for me, is the next destination in cloud. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Bobby. Listen, on behalf of our global audience, I want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us. I mean, it's really late right now in India, and here you are, thought and industry leadership with our global audience, and we sincerely appreciate you doing that. We appreciate your expertise, and we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me here, Jose.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Bobby Sudharshan, who is the Associate Vice President of Enterprise Architecture and Cloud Services at DIGO, and sharing his knowledge, expertise, and wisdom when it comes to implementing an enterprise architecture strategy and really leveraging a multi-cloud environment. So this is our final session for Enterprise Architecture Live. On behalf of the entire team at Proqis and the Business Transformation and Operational Excellence World Summit, would like to say thank you to every one of you for being here with us on this journey. We have learned from tremendous industry leaders and experts covering process and architecture and culture, business, and digital transformation. And none of this would be possible without the stewardship of Brian Raffel, who is our conference director. So Brian, thank you for making it all work so seamless. We now also have Kanchan Singh with us, and she is doing a tremendous job of making sure that all these pieces align so that we can provide you with a seamless experience on a global basis. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kanchan, for your leadership. And of course, the CEO of Proqis Digital, Vijay Bajaj, who makes this possible, who creates an environment where great people and great ideas can connect globally. Vijay Bajaj, thank you again for your leadership. And last but certainly not least, our sponsors. None of this would be possible without the sponsorship of Value Blue, Mega International, Lean9x, and BizDesign. Thank you for bringing a world-class virtual event series to our global audience at no cost. So again, Value Blue, Mega International, Lean9x, and BizDesign, you're leading the way on enterprise architecture and intelligent automation, and we appreciate your leadership on that. Now, our next conference will be the Business Transformation and Operational Excellence World Summit, focused on digital workplace transformations. Our agenda is already online, and you can access through the link that I posted on the chat. It's going to take place July 27th through July 29th. So make sure that you sign up and register for that, because being registered for this conference does not automatically register for the next one. So make sure you're part of that and you connect with us on digital workplace transformation. You can look at the agenda, it's already available. Tremendous thought and industry leaders will be sharing their experiences on their digital transformation in the workplace with, during that 3-day conference. We have post-conference, we're going to send you a link and email with all the session recordings so that you can consume this content at your own leisure and time, and maybe repeat some of these presentations and see some of the insights that went by fast, and you can take a little bit more time internalizing this incredible content. So you should receive that email in the next week or two. You'll have a protected link and password that will give you access to all of the sessions. Also, on LinkedIn, under my name, Jose Perez, you will be able to see the posting for this conference. And under that posting, we have updates for days 1, 2, and 3. We have comments from speakers, from participants. We have questions. So please feel free to like, share, and engage on that content. If there are any additional questions that were not addressed during the conference, you can post them there as well. And certainly, please say a thank you to our speakers, say a thank you to our sponsors for making this all possible and sharing their expertise and with us. So I hope that whatever you are in the world, that you have a great rest of your day, that you have a great rest of this week, and I look forward to seeing you back at Digital Workplace Transformation on July 27th through 29th. So for now, bye-bye from San Antonio, Texas to the world. Take care. Have a great week.